Good morning and welcome to Cheche, the program where opinion counts, live on Citizen TV. I'm your host, Udwa Kamimo. Now, by this time next week, we should have voted and we hope have a clear idea of who the country's next president will be. One of the checks on that process will be observer groups. And today on Cheche, we're pleased to have with us the former president of Mozambique, Joaquim Chissano. He's the head of the African Union Election Observer Mission to the Kenya elections. Providing us with a local perspective is Kennedy Masime, chairperson of the Elections Observer Group, or ELOG. Also with me is Citizen TV's Mutegi Njao. Good morning and welcome to Cheche. Mr. Chissano, I'll start with you. Can you give us an overview of your mission, what your observation entails?
Well, our mission is twofold. First is to help the Kenyans to maintain a peaceful environment for the elections. Second is to observe that the elections have gone well, with no violence, no rigging, and orderly, and to observe the balloting and the counting of votes and all what it entails, the whole process. And after that, we are going to write our report with recommendations, which we will share with the authorities in Kenya. And we will liaise with the other observation groups from different organizations to compare notes.
Okay.
When you say you're helping Kenya, what do you mean by helping? How are you helping us?
Yeah, I mean that it's the duty of the Kenyans themselves to preserve peace. But sometimes, because there are many groups wanting to accede to the different posts, they may have tensions. So we come to talk with them because a third person always can calm down the nerves so that they can talk and find good ways to solve their problems.
In that case, does it mean you have already had any contact with the candidates? Have you talked to the candidates, the various presidential candidates?
We are starting to do this job today. Today, because we arrived when they were out in the campaigns. Okay. So we'll talk with all candidates, not only the candidates. We have started working with the institutions which are leading the process to see to it that they are ready, and we make observations when we feel that something may go wrong. We have seen the Electoral Commission. We are going to see the security side and so on. And we have talked with the media council, for instance, because sometimes the media also has to be...
Yeah. You've had long-term observers in the country, though, since last month. The AU Center.
Yes.
Yes. So what are their findings so far?
The findings of observers and the long-term observers is encouraging. They found that the Kenyans are committed to peaceful elections, and we guess that there will be a good turnout of people going to vote, and we encourage that to happen. And secondly, they have seen that the security preparations are fairly good. Of course, the security will depend on the behavior of the citizens themselves. But the police is doing all their best. And we think that they will be present in all polling stations to secure that there is no violence, but so as to act at first moment, contrary to what happened 5 years ago, where the police was taken unaware by surprise with all this violence. So they came to act later on, but now they are prepared.
Mr. Masima, I'll come to you. How is Mr. Chissano's perspective representing the continental body, the African Union, different from yours as the head of a local observer mission?
Yeah, there has to be a difference in the sense that we are a permanent platform for comprehensively monitoring and observing elections. So as a domestic observation initiative, we do they sometimes make a distinction between monitoring and observation. So as observers, they will come, see what happens, and then give a report. But we also do monitoring, which means we can also participate in the process and intervene to a certain extent. So we've been monitoring since the promulgation of the new constitution, both pre-election activities for the past 1 year. We have planned for the E-Day, and then we do post-election. So that will definitely give us a different perspective of the happenings around the election.
Okay, I'll come back to you, President Chissano, because, for instance, in the case of the domestic observer, they've been doing something called parallel voter tabulation. How would that fit into, say, the international observation?
Well, as domestic observers, I think that they can do that. And actually, the parties, they do that. The bad thing is if they announce the results before the results of the Electoral Commission. Actually, I would urge that they check with the Electoral Commission, and only in case they discover that there's something wrong, they would discuss with the Electoral Commission. And theirs should not be used to be made public, but it's to control and to help the Electoral Commission to do correct things.
Okay, so take us through parallel voter tabulation.
Parallel vote tabulation, PVT, is just an enhanced, methodology for doing observation. In the past, we used to deploy, thousands of observers out there in all the polling stations. Even now we do, but we minimize the numbers. But parallel vote tabulation uses a scientific methodology, statistical sampling. So what we'll do is to scientifically sample polling stations that will be representative of the national samples. In terms of out of the 33,000 polling stations, we'll sample about 1,800. Then send observers there who are specially trained. With the use of mobile phones, they'll be reporting to us. We have a pre-programmed database where they'll be sending the information. So we'll get like 5 texts in the course of the day, speaking to the election processes. So the first text will be, for instance, when did the polling stations open? Did the materials arrive on time in your polling station? Was there security, etc.? So they will be sending this text at critical moments in the course of the day. And then finally, at the end of the day, they will get the results that will be announced by the elections, which will then tally and do a projections of especially at the national level, the presidential level.
But the other thing that you've been doing, and I'm coming to you, Mutegi, the other thing you've been doing is taking stock of electoral malpractice offenses, voter buying, voter busing, where people are brought in. And your last couple of reports, December and October, detail quite a few of these offenses around the country.
Yes.
What happens to that information? How do you use it? How does it impact on the process?
Yeah, like I said, we monitor pre-election activities and we prioritize a number of things, the ones you mentioned, campaign financing, voter registration, voter education, name them. So what we do is to document. We have long-term observers, which we recruited last year, and they are out there with checklists capturing all these aspects of the electoral process. So what we do is compile this into a report and then share with the election implementing institution.
Would you then share it, say, with the African Union?
Yes. Actually, this time around, we are really cooperating. Their advanced team of long-term observers have been to our offices. They came, we chatted. They were even there on Monday for our simulation. Even after this, I'm going to give them a brief at Norfolk. Where they are briefing.
Let me come to you, Mutegi. Sorry, you've got a question, but one of our viewers, for instance, asked, what is the point of observers? They come in during elections and then they leave us, and we don't really feel their impact. Now, you've obviously covered, quite a few elections in your time.
Yes,
Do you find that there's any benefit to having observers, both domestic and international?
I think they are useful because there's a kind of control factor. But unfortunately, most, particularly the Western types who come here from Europe and America, they just come here for junket trips. They stay in hotels in Nairobi and they write reports, which are not very useful. If you remember 2007, when we tried to, Craigland and all those fellows who came to find out what the problem was, when they tried to get observer input, there was not much, they were not very useful. But I think now they are a little bit more organized than last year. But the locals, I think they are very serious because they are serious stakeholders. But there are types that come from America and Europe. They just come here to enjoy themselves.
Can we draw a distinction? Because you say the type that are coming from the West. So is there a distinction between the domestic and the continental, or where are you drawing this line?
Obviously, the African, they are, when you look at AU, for instance, AU have serious stakes because of the Africans. And if you see an older man like this one coming here, he's not coming for holiday. But if you see others who come Europa, and they stay in Nairobi hotels or Kisumu, they don't go to the villages.
But they're also staying in hotels, and I'll pick you up on that because the African Union itself has been criticized because they say that the observer missions that come from regional bodies tend to endorse the status quo. Yeah. So, for instance, the 2005 election in Ethiopia, where there was a bit of a turmoil, and so the EU, the European Union Election Observer Mission, detailed all sorts of electoral malpractice. The African Union mission said it was fine. How do you deal with that credibility of your mission?
Well, our missions have been always thorough in their reports because we have a good number of observers who go to the polling stations. This time, for instance, we have at least 60 members who are going to be deployed. So our sampling is very credible. And we have a charter which conducts that. We have guidelines, very precise ones. So we have to check all of this. We also are guided with the laws of the country, but we have the guidelines of the African Union. We have a charter and different documents which we have to take it very seriously. Therefore, our report, when we say yes, this is good, it's because it is within the parameters of what our principles tell us to do.
Mr. Masime, yes, you talked about that kind of exit voting.
Parallel vote tabulation, yes.
Is that the same thing as exit voting that is done in America?
No.
What's the difference?
In like exit polls,
yes,
you ask voters who they voted for. You are depending on their opinion.
Yeah.
They can tell you the right thing or not.
Depending on whether they were honest.
Or whether they are honest.
Yeah.
But parallel vote tabulation, you actually use the results. You'll be in the polling station monitoring the processes and then documenting the process. And then in terms of your own projection, the sample is the polling station and the results actually announced by the IEBC in our
Let's be clear. Let's make sure that we understand this clearly. What you're saying is that at the polling station, as the results are announced from that station, you are also doing your own tabulation.
Yes, but based on a statistical sample of the polling station, not all of them.
Okay.
But we will scientifically sample the polling station, and then from the stations we've sampled, we will tally the final, results from each polling station based on what IBC has announced. So it's the actual thing we'll be doing. But we also.
And then you compare your addition, as it were, to make sure that there are no discrepancies.
Yes, because once we do our calculations, we'll be able to project the presidential vote, who has won and by what percentages, and then we will compare this with the official result.
Okay.
In 2007, there was an issue about some American observer group that gave the information. And they were blamed that they didn't. And they made that information known to the public.
Yes.
There would have been a problem.
Yes.
Can you comment about that?
Yes, I know the IRI, for instance,
Yes.
did the opinion poll, but they didn't announce it. But I mean, the exit polls. But still, with the challenges of an exit poll, you can't not be certain that what voters, especially as they exit the polling station, tell you is actually what they did.
Okay.
So I think even if they announce it, there will still be questions around it.
Okay, so we have to take a break now. You're watching Cheche live on Citizen TV. We're looking ahead to the voting next Monday and getting the views from international and local observers with the former president of Mozambique, Joaquim Chissano, along with Kennedy Masime. If you have any questions for them, you can SMS 2442 or tweet Cheche_TV.